Hey friends, John here from Proverbs 27:9 Fragrances. And today we're doing part 3 on my favorite winter fragrances. And to be honest with you, I think looking at all of my collective lists so far, I think today's is probably going to be the strongest. And so these actually, as a whole, might be my favorite list. There may be one off of the first list that I would put in to my actual or one off the second, but as a whole, I think this is the strongest list so far. All right, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. If you're a returning subscriber, I say thank you so much for joining us every day. Go ahead and hit that like button, and when you're done, you know what you think about this list or what you think ought to be on a favorites winter list. And make sure you got the notifications on. That way you're notified every time we upload this sweet smelling fragrance content. All right, let's get right into it. First one I want to talk is, if you've watched my channel any length of time, you know this is one that I'm really fond of. It is one of my oldest Evan's favorite fragrances, but I believe all of my boys. I know my youngest Sawyer is real fond of it. I have to go get it from him a lot. My middle son Landon, I don't know if I know he liked it. He's never stole it from me, so I guess maybe it's not among his top favorites. But Halloween Man X. Cardamom, lavender, lemon are the top notes. Coffee, whiskey, cinnamon, and I thought leather's listed in the mid. Tonka, amber, and incense. When I was looking over the note listings for fragrances on this list, a lot of them share a lot of the same notes. I mean, among fragrance notes are lavender, cedar wood. I like tonka to sweeten things up, just not overly sweet. I love spices, pink pepper, black pepper, cardamom, my favorite. I do like saffron. I don't think it's listed in any of these fragrances today. Cinnamon, as long as it's not overbearing. I love tobacco when used appropriately, boozy notes when used appropriately. I don't want to smell like I've been in the bar, obviously, but I do like them to add subtle nuances. I like leather used as a backup. I don't like leather forward fragrances, so to speak, but I like ambroxan. I love smoky incense, and I love resins. Frankincense, myrrh, elemi, benzoin, and just the list goes on. So a lot of these fragrances share the fragrance standout is that coffee note. It's sweet tonka. There's subtle, lavender and cardamom, and there's a light booziness to it, but it's the coffee is what really makes this one sing. I think you've got to kind of like the smell of coffee to wear that one. All right, second one we're going to talk about. I'm going to mix my list up a little bit here. I'm going to go for one of the from what I feel is probably the best fragrance house in the world, Guerlain, and from their L'Homme Ideal line, which I love. I've liked every fragrance that I've smelled from it. Not all of them has been a love for me. I like it, don't love it. The Eau de Parfum, it's more on the verge of love, but not as much. But intense, love it. The OG, absolutely love it. One of my favorite fragrances of all time, as well as this one, the extreme version. Never smelled it. It's just so smooth. It's got a kind of a cherry almond top. It's got this kind of boozy, leathery mid, and just a nice woody patchouli base to it. The pink pepper and bergamot. Plum is the mid notes with cinnamon and heliotrope, and so you get that kind of kick of spice. You've got this nice. The plum helps to sweeten it. I think the almond, olive, or at least the eau de parfum and this one all have a cherry type smell to them. To me, cherry's not listed as a note. I think it may be that plum and that almond working together. Tobacco leather, patchouli, and cedar. It's just to die for. Guys, Donatella fragrances will have that from time to time. It's hard to find right now. Fragrancebuy.ca will get it in every once in a while. You have to buy it as soon as you see it. But it is absolutely fantastic. I think it's a blind buy. Unless you're just trying to spend, well over $100. I don't ever suggest blind buying any fragrance for over $100, but it is fantastic. All right. So we're doing 5 in all these lists, so we've got 3 more, and I'll have sort of a theme, and that theme is black, and we're going to white and black. I did do a early Fab 5 Winter Frag video, and I think Halloween Man X was on it. I'm not sure, but I know Lalique White and Black was on it. But sweet, spicy, dark. It's got a little bit of that tarish note that Amen from Mugler made famous. This fragrance smells like Layton by Parfums de Marly. It does. I've had it. Smells like it. I sold my Layton because this, quality wise, I feel like it's pretty. Scent wise, it smells just as good. It's not a clone of it. There are differences, but it smells in the air so much like it that you could almost call it a clone. Top notes: frankincense, Sicilian bergamot, grapefruit. Middle notes: cardamom, lavender, pink pepper, elemi. Base notes: and cedar, Tulum balsam, and patchouli. So, all of my favorite notes. I don't think I mentioned vanilla earlier, but I do love vanilla. I do love patchouli. I'm not a huge sandalwood guy. I don't have sandalwood, but a lot of times sandalwood and patchouli are used together. But when it's used right, I like it. I just don't like it. But that's a great fragrance, and you can get that for like $45. It's one. When I make my best value fragrance list, that will be probably close to the top. All right. Let's see. Next, we're going to go with an in the community from the house of Mercedes, and it is Club Black. You see, it's a tester bottle that I have here. This one is very similar to the other ones. It's just a little smoother, not as spicy. Okay. Perfumed by, let's see here, Olivier Cresp, one of my favorite perfumers, master perfumer. Top notes: bergamot. Middle notes: incense and jasmine. Jasmine is one of my favorite floral. It's one of the notes that sticks out in Dior's Eau Sauvage. Base notes: vanilla, woods, and ambroxan. And I wish the performance was a little bit better on this one, but it may just be that I go nose blind to it. It's smooth, it's sweet, ambery. There's no leather here, but it almost has kind of a leather vibe. But it's not as easy to find as it used to be. You used to pick that up in rack stores all the time. Every once in a while you still can. But speaking of rack stores, just got back from our snowbirding vacation to go down to Florida when it gets super cold here in northeast Arkansas. 10 days down there, and the rack stores in Orlando are amazing. I went into a Ross that had more fragrances than probably any fragrance store I've ever been to. Going in a fragrance outlet or perfume, or any of those fragrance stores in the outlet malls, that Ross had more fragrances than those carried. And they had some decent ones. I picked up Uomo, Ferragamo Uomo, which I've been wanting for a while in there. But men's and women's, I mean, it was just so impressed. The TJ Maxx that I went into several, all of them, but one in particular just had a whole wall of fragrances. I was amazed. Not like that in Northeast Arkansas. All right, what do we got left? I did it out. So let's see. I've done Halloween Man X, Guerlain Extreme, Lalique, Mercedes. Last one here. Final one, and I've saved the best, I think, for last, or at least my favorite. I don't know that it's better than the Guerlain, but it's absolutely awesome. From the house of Bulgari, Man in Black. And this one's a recent acquisition. I actually smelled this one for the first time last year in Orlando. It was late. They were about to close, and this particular, it was one of them that was not a dedicated store. It had the little kiosk in the middle, and they had some really hard to find fragrances. They had Bulgari Man in Black, which was on discounted websites at the time, out of stock. They had Gucci Guilty Absolute, which was the same, out of stock everywhere. So I smelled both of those. I didn't buy either one of them at the time because, and they actually had a decent price on this one. It was just more than what it was going for on discounters when it was in stock. So I didn't pull the trigger. I should have, because I was paying more for it this year, I think, and I could have had it the whole year. The Gucci Guilty Absolute, I'd have bought it too. I mean, that medicinal opening it was rough, but I think as my likes have changed, I think I would probably like it. But this fragrance is amazing, guys. It's so sweet and spicy, or it's super sweet. It's so spicy and masculine and interesting to me. Rios, again, one of my favorite perfumers, and probably yours too, one of the most successful, at least in the world, master perfumer. This one has spices listed with rum and tobacco on the top. When I smelled it, when I go in and try to, pick out those spices, it smells to me like cardamom and cinnamon. Parfumo, they just had spices listed. Went to base notes, they had cardamom and cinnamon. So I'm pretty confident that that is the spices that is listed. It's what it smells like. It smells fantastic. Leather, iris, and then tuberose, Gaiac wood, and benzoin. This fragrance, taking the best nuances from like Memo Paris's African leather, the spices out of the top, or even the original, like if you like the original Spice Bomb, it just doesn't have any of that weird synthetic-y. And is so much smoother, so much. I prefer this one head and shoulders above the original Spice Bomb. I think I'm actually liking it at this moment better than Spice Bomb Extreme. The cedar, or the Gaiac wood actually, is what is used in this one. It just smells so good as the base. The resins, the leather, the iris, the rum and the tobacco, about that 10 to 15 minute mark, start to come through. And again, it's not overpowering. They just kind of play in the background, and it's fantastic. It's, there's no ambroxan listed here, but kind of something in it's given it this lift and projection. It projects well. It performs decently, but it smells fantastic. One of my favorite fragrances that I've purchased this year, and absolutely banger for the winter. All right, guys, those are my list 3 favorite fragrances for the winter time. And again, like I said, I think this is probably my strongest list. Just 1 through 5, every one's a banger. If I was going to take one off, honestly, it'd probably be close to favorite on this list, but it is a fantastic fragrance. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think about these fragrances or any others. And make sure you're like and subscribed and all those things. Till we see you down the road, we say God bless. Frag on, Frag fam.